Deus, o salutaris nostre, Domini ex Deus, Filii ex Deus, Deus noster, Gabriel ex Esper, Angeli, Arcangeli, Pateti, Laudem Domino Majestatis,
How's everybody doing? I've been having a fantastic day. It is Monday, January 20th, and we're live. We are live. Let me know how everything goes on this stream, okay? Let me know how my audio is, my video, my connection, because now I have all three plugged in. We have Ethernet cable, we have my camera, and we have my normal mic. So let me know how it is. I'm going to rewatch through some of it and see whether there are some places for improvement, okay? Thank you for bearing with me this past week. It has been a terrible, terrible week when it comes to internet connection. But as always, bouncing back. So today is just going to be a normal, everyday, average, ordinary Q&A. I will be out of town from Wednesday to Saturday, going to North Dakota, going to do some fun stuff in North Dakota, going to do some connected political issue stuff in North Dakota. Not anything secretive. Don't worry about it. I talked about it on my Twitter. I think I posted everything on my Twitter. I'm pretty sure. So go there if you are in North Dakota and you want to see me. We can hang out in North Dakota. I'm lagging out of it. There's no way. Oh my goodness. My video keeps randomly lagging behind the audio. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not getting Culver's with you. I hate Culver's. Culver's sucks. Okay, audio is fine, but video is freezing occasionally. That is interesting. Okay, definitely let me know what's going on with that. But that's all for updates. Everything else is normal. Everything else is going. I should have an edited video out Wednesday. The edited video that's coming out Wednesday is on Saint Optatus. It's a very, very good video, if I do say so myself. It's one of the best videos on Saint Optatus. I don't think there's any other videos on Saint Optatus, to be honest. That's why, part of the reason why it's the best, but intrinsically speaking, it's going to be a good video. Working on a video on consensus of the fathers and consensus of the fathers in the interpretation of Scripture. Be working on that one. That one will probably come out near the end of this week or next week. So, I just bought a new computer. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is definitely not an internet problem. Either a hardware, camera, or software, whatever used to stream problem. Interesting. So last time it was fine, though. Last time it was absolutely fine. But what do you think pro-lifers should do to advance the agenda during the Trump presidency? That's a very good question. From my understanding, a lot of the way in which these are functioning, and I'm assuming I'm lagging right now, so it's unfortunate. But from my understanding, much of the situation right now, the political situation, at least on the issue of abortion, is something which is local. It's something which is at the state level. It's something which is not really going to realistically be settled at a federal level. So really, a lot of the pro-life organizations need to engage in lawfare against Planned Parenthood and all of the pro-choice organizations. And you have to, whatever you do, keep it out of the hands of the voters. The voters, whenever they have a decision on this matter, they make the most retarded decisions. Every single time, the voters make terrible decisions. Okay? So, whatever you do, anyone involved in the pro-life sort of sector of things, keep it out of the hands of the people. The people make horrible decisions every single time. Have we not learned how terrible the people are making decisions? Every time it's just the worst decisions over and over and over and over again. And yet you have all of these Catholic political types, unfortunately, some of them clerics, and they think the way forward for a genuinely Catholic political movement is through common discourse, where we attempt to, on commonly held principles, convince them reasonably to do what concupiscence is drawing them against. Like, really? You think you think it's reasonable to expect somebody who doesn't at all care about the Christian religion? For example, I'll give you a quick example. You think it's reasonable to expect somebody who, due to the infection that comes from Adam, due to the concupiscence which ravages their soul, do you expect this individual to, abstracting from divine revelation, purely going off the light of reason, do you expect the average individual, upon hearing a really good argument, to just say, oh yeah, I guess it's actually wrong to fornicate. I guess it's actually wrong. Pornography is actually wrong, guys. Cooming is actually wrong. These are all actually wrong because you gave me a really strong demonstrative argument on that point. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. That's not how we further the agenda of political action. That's pretty obvious. Okay. Anyways, let me check to see if my Ethernet is actually plugged in. Yeah, it is connected. And everything says that it is going fine right now. So I'm not sure what's going on. Not sure what's going on at all. Wagner, have you read the syllabus of errors on this topic? How about Pope Pius XI condemned the idea that it's no longer expedient to have the Roman Catholic Church as the state religion? Yeah, basically, when it comes to this idea, we can distinguish between practical political prudence, and we can distinguish between that and what, in the abstract, is the sort of ideal circumstance. So, with those who are saying that it wasn't expedient to have the Roman Catholic Church as the state religion, those were certain individuals who were condemned for saying that, in the abstract, it was not at all appropriate to anymore have the Roman Catholic Church as the state religion. It wasn't condemning those who, as a matter of political prudence, would have said that, hey, in a sort of step-by-step measure towards that end of having the Roman Catholic Church as the state religion, we need to work with these people, we need to work with those people, we kind of need to work along the way. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you get the distinction? I'm lagging? Yeah, I'm going to check what my download speed is. This is really annoying because we actually did get it fixed last time and everything was fine. So I'm not sure what's going on. What the heck? My upload speed is like 2. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here. I guess I'll just sit in black pill and answer questions. I don't care if I'm going in and out. I'll turn my camera quality down a little bit further. There we go. We're turned down another level. Okay, when it comes to mortal sin, when addiction is a factor, what is the level of culpability / full consent? Would it technically be venial sin, or does one still fully consent? I mean, there are circumstances. It depends on obviously the grade and level of addiction that one is suffering from, and also it comes down to their consent to. Because obviously speaking, with most cases, I'm sure we can think of an extreme case where this isn't the case, but with most every case, somebody who is addicted to a certain substance or a certain behavior, this individual is going to have some continual consenting, and they're still a free agent. They're still a free agent, so they're continually consenting and not fully resisting the force of that vice which they have inculcated. So with that individual, because there's still a degree of freedom, there's obviously going to be a degree of sinfulness attached to it. Now, it just comes down to a question of how intense is this vice? And also, what was the consent that they had to that vice? So, like, for example, if they did a certain behavior or activity with the knowledge that they would have some sort of moral danger of falling into habitual mortal sin, then they're going to be held liable for this. Kind of a similar situation happens with drunkenness. So somebody who gets drunk with the knowledge that upon getting intoxicated, they're going to commit certain grave sins, and they're going to be guilty for all of those grave sins. Now, another individual might accidentally get drunk or get drunk without the foresight that they are morally sort of have a moral danger of falling into those faults. That individual, the case is going to be otherwise, if that makes sense. I know. It's just my internet's not doing well. I have no idea what's going on. It was the whole day. It was just fine. It's just audio at this point. The whole day was going fine. I did get fat. Stop telling me to get faster internet. Okay. This sucks. Mods, just ban everyone at this point. I saw a random car while parking and it hit a light pole. Was it sinful for me to assume it was a woman? Turned out to be the case. No. I'm just banning everyone at this point. There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can do. Already tried Ethernet. Already tried upgrading internet. Already tried everything. Wagner, what is your position on superlapsarianism and infralapsarianism, and what are your objections to the position that you oppose? I am firmly an infralapsarian. I think that God elects and reprobates man on the assumption of the fall. My reason for this position is very simple. St. Thomas teaches it. I mean, that's basically the extent of my reasoning on this topic, is that St. Thomas teaches it. I'm considering Rome after being convinced of Tridentine teaching being found in St. Augustine, but how would you interpret St. Bernard of Clairvaux? Yeah, I haven't really looked into the St. Bernard of Clairvaux quotations and their interpretations, to be honest. So, could you ask a different question? I don't want to, it feels like I'm stealing to not want to comment on a question. Audio is bad. Shut up. I'm banning you. I'm banning all of you. Carpope, you called me Lagner. You're getting timed out. Your audio is fine for the most part. Okay, thank you for the compliment. Wagner, on the matter of AI, do you suppose its development in a way replaces theologian / scholastic studies? Not at all. I think that's really silly. Not at all. I'm glad you're watching on Rumble. Rumble stream watchers are very underrated, but absolutely not at all. AI, computers can't contemplate God. I mean, computers are just, they just copy what we do. They could be used as a tool for extrapolating pure data in the same way that we can use a lot of the wicked and atheistic humanists in their study of certain matters of history, but they won't replace the theologian at all. Not even close. Glitchner, yeah, get banned for that. Yeah, I don't is the Protestant view of justification novelty or late medieval corruption? Padamempatus keeps threading on X about how pre-Trinitine theologians who supposedly held the fiducious, etc. I mean, so the theologians that he are quoting that are pre-Trinitine, those are theologians who were influenced by the Protestants. None of them came pre-Reformation. They're all post-Reformation, and they actually themselves departed from the teaching of the Augustinian order that they claim to follow. There's a good, I don't have it around me, but there's a good dissertation on Augustine of Rome, who was a 15th century Augustinian theologian, on his view of justification. And I mean, what you see from this is you see an example of how, by seeing a 15th century example, you see an immediate pre Reformation example of the teaching in the Augustinian order on justification. And you see that those Roman Catholic theologians who were departing from, were agreeing with the Protestants on these points, these individuals were merely following the teaching of the humanists. They weren't following the traditional teaching of the Augustinian order. They were influenced by Protestants, not a sort of common source of some sort, like this argument would seem to assume, in order for it to be demonstrative at all. I don't, dude. I don't know why you keep asking about Port Royale. I don't have any thoughts on Port Royale. Good audio, good quality, good job. If Archangel Michael is immaterial, can you explain how he fought Satan in heaven, since that implies physical discourse or angels like seraphim and cherubim having physical descriptions? It's a metaphor. Did you see that Trent Horn used you as a source on St. Augustine in his latest video? Did he? Oh, we have to watch this. Yeah, let me see what the speed test is now. I literally have no idea what's going on. All day, my internet was completely fine. Is it like a StreamYard thing? I'm turning my audio quality down even further. I'm turning it to low definition, 360 pixels. Yeah, I'm pixelated, boys. This is just terrible. What's going on here? Well, I guess it wouldn't be a StreamYard thing if my speed test is saying that. But which video? Let me look. Trent Horn. The fallacy that sends most people to hell. Interesting. I don't know how I'm quoted by that. Anyways, saw you in the I Want to Be a Catholic video of that Protestant guy. Oh, I don't know who that is. Does anyone know a good book or source refuting the documentary hypothesis? Yeah, Murmuring Against Moses. Just look up Murmuring Against Moses. Murmuring Against Moses. Yeah, that's what it's called. That's a good book. It's almost 400 pages, and it just bodies them. It's amazing. Wagner, what is your favorite Black Ops 2 Zombies map? The town. The town is great. If anybody wants to play Black Ops 2 Zombies, let me know. I'll play with you. I need more people. Okay, video is better now. Okay, good. I'm keeping it. I'll put it back up to 480, I guess. But I'm keeping it there. Amazing quality. Okay, good. What pope and document condemned the idea that the Old Testament was only figurative and not literal? I saw you posted about it on X and couldn't find it. I don't know what you're talking about. How do we distinguish modes of procession? The modes of procession are distinguished on the basis of, they're not distinguished by mode. They're only distinguished as to their terminus. So intellection and volition, like if there wasn't relative opposition, but this is the whole point of the argument for the Filioque, is that if we didn't have a distinct relative opposition between the Son and the Spirit, and the two modes of procession would just collapse, and both would produce the same terminus, which would be like the sun. You would have no spirit; you would just have a sun, because both would communicate the same. Okay, I'll play if you play. I play on Xbox, so if anybody messages me, I guess I can make like a Discord or something for Black Ops 2 players. No point playing if your internet sucks. I played before online and it's fine. Okay, so is the Holy Spirit proceeding from two sources? I mean, it depends on what you mean by that. I'll give you an analogous question. Do you think creation proceeds from three sources? Or does it proceed from one source? Now, I think most of you would probably understand that you need to distinguish between the common nature, which is the principle by which the entire Godhead operates and therefore is a single principle of all of creation, and the three persons which commonly possess that nature. So in the same way, when you look at the spirit of power, the power by which the spirit is spirated, it is commonly possessed by the Father and the Son, but it's possessed as one power in one operation, and therefore they form together one source. There's one principle which spirates the spirit, but it's possessed by two. This is in virtue of the common power. Does that make sense? I'm not going to slow down the lobby. Would you debate Bishop Sanborn? No. Okay, let me see. Thoughts on this Father Martin Navarro on X. He claims he is a validly ordained priest. He got ordained by a bishop from the Arnold Harris Matthew line. Yeah, I know. I actually know I knew an Anglican priest who was ordained in the same line. He's kind of annoying. I guess the only times I remember him is just him being kind of annoying. I don't really remember much else about him, to be honest. Have I read this random dissertation on the Hesychist controversy? No, I haven't. Can the church teach something contrary to previous authentic, non-definitive doctrine, and how is this distinguished from transformistic evolution of dogma? Yeah, this is a good question. Because these forms of teaching are not theses, which are guided by the gift of infallibility, one needs to give a conditional assent to them, but they can be incorrect. I would say that they wouldn't be able to be heretical, but they can be incorrect. And therefore, these things can be contradicted by future teaching. The church could reverse that non-definitive teaching. And the way that this is distinguished from transformistic evolution of dogma is that when we're talking about evolution of dogma, we're talking about the relation of teaching to the apostolic deposit. We're not talking about the relationship between multiple different teachings to each other. So, for example, the teaching that Christ has human knowledge. Technically, the teaching that Christ has human knowledge, this isn't formally contained in divine revelation. It's only virtually contained in divine revelation. At least I would argue that's only virtually contained in divine revelation. So it's contained by so it's deduced by what's called a really illative process of reasoning. So you actually draw forth the conclusion of the reasoning. You're not merely just explaining the terms in the major premise. So from this fact, let's say we had a previous pope who really screwed up on this one and taught in a authentic way, but non-definitive way, that Christ didn't have human knowledge. And then the next pope was like, he was really bad about that, and taught that actually Christ did have human knowledge. Now it's a question of whether something like this could become dogmatic or not, whether it could become definitive or be taught definitively or not. There's a debate on that between various different, especially 20th century theologians. But basically, what we would be doing with the whether Christ has human knowledge or not, we would be comparing that to the apostolic deposit, we wouldn't be comparing that with the previous teaching. One is a magisterial reversal, the other one's an evolution of dogma, if that makes sense. I don't know why I keep saying if that makes sense. I mean, can the church teach something that is materially heretical? Invoking, I kind of get it. It's not your fault. I'm just using this as an occasion. I will pull up your super chat, Jerome. But basically, I get really annoyed when the category of material heresy is even brought forward in this discussion because it doesn't make any sense. When you mention material heresy, what you mean to exclude by mentioning material heresy is the fact of individual culpability. The question of infallible safety isn't about individual culpability at all. I mean, the question of individual culpability and whether the Pope can commit a certain interior act of heresy as like a moral act, like that's not at all like that. That's a very minority view that holds that the Pope cannot, commit a mortal sin against the faith in such a way as to interiorly deny the faith. So invoking material heresy doesn't even make sense here. Basically, it would just be when we're talking about teaching, it's only going to be the category of whether something is formally heretical or virtually heretical, not formally versus materially heretical. And by virtually heretical, we just mean a truth which implies a negation of one of the something which is dogmatically taught. Which any error is going to be virtually heretical in that way. So that would just be the question of whether there can be error. So I really don't get why a lot of people insist on invoking the category of material heresy when we're talking about the teaching of the Pope. It doesn't make any sense. What I'm trying to get you to do is to explain why the Matthew line is invalid. Pius X called him a heretical pseudo bishop, trying to get people to stop donating to his fake monastery. I need to do the Matthew line. I need to do more research on the Matthew line. I'm sorry, Jerome. I really, for all practical purposes, have no idea about the why and whether those orders are invalid. Lagner, did you call me I'm timing you out for that one. Okay, so let me see. Okay, yeah. I mean, basically, this makes no sense. So how can I'm going to answer that super chat in a minute? But I saw this one, and I don't know why I had to answer this right away, but I did. How can Muslims worship God if they have a false opinion of Him? My friend states that Muslims cannot offer worship to God because of this note in the Summa. Yeah. When it comes to this interpretation of Saint Thomas, it doesn't make any sense. Because if we were to be consistent on this, because as he quotes from the authority of Saint Boethius, any sort of negation of a simple form is false. If we were to take their interpretation of that principle, then basically, like the Scotists, the Scotists wouldn't worship the true God. I mean, some of the Thomists, because some of the Thomists disagree on matters of de uno et trino. I mean, in this way, anybody who has a slightly wrong opinion about God on any sort of aspect would not worship the true God. That interpretation of St. Thomas is kind of insane. Okay. Yeah, I needed to. There you go. I've seen people say the Trinity solves the problem of the one and the many, like in Parmenides. Can you explain how? It's just people that don't know what they're talking about. It's just weird. It's basically just a bunch of weird Calvinists who say that. I have no idea if they even know about the problem of the one and the many is. Do you want to know what the problem of the one and the many is, or are you just asking me whether I think it works or not, or why? Because I mean, the one and the many, that's just a certain question which is brought up in book 1 of the Physics, and this is the question of how we can speak about basically how one distinguishes into many. And the way in which we solve this problem is we distinguish between act and potency. Okay. Did you watch the debate of Lofton where he prudentially and with utmost respect grilled a Muslim? No, I saw the. Let me see. I saw the video somewhere. Wait, picture this: the debate that exposed Martin Luther as a heretic on the Leipzig debate. Play by play. Michael, as he goes through a play by play analysis of Luther's historic debate with Catholic theologian Johann Eck. Oh my gosh, this is just like the worst AI slop ever. Oh my goodness. What is going on here?
So picture this: Martin Luther in a chasuble during a Eucharistic procession on his way to a
What
debate,
is this?
1519, Leipzig, Germany. On the other hand, you have the famous Catholic theologian Johann Eck also on his way to the debate, armed and surrounded by 76 bodyguards. So how did we get here? What's the debate about? How did it end? That is what we're going to talk about today. But first, I want to remind you, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you want to see more content.
Dude, the AI slop goes crazy. It's so sad. Anyways, what was I supposed to be looking at? Oh, yeah, I saw that video. Oh, no. Who banned? Okay, so when you say the distinct... Oh, wait, there's a... Yeah, I'll just answer this because it's an extension of a past answer. When you say the distinction is in the terminus, you mean the terminus by which, as in the Son is a terminus by which? No. That's, you're thinking of principle. So terminus or term, that's talking about that in which a certain act results. I guess the best way of putting it, or that like a line terminates in a point, for example. So when I say they're distinguished as to their terminus, that's the relation. So remember, relation has a certain act which establishes it, and there's the being to or the SA add to the terminus. So there's an order to a terminus. So when it comes to the distinction between procession by way of intellection, by way of volition, because the intellect and will in God are not really distinct, it's something which is only distinguished by way of terminus. Okay, does that make sense? Like sorry, that was kind of a lame way of explaining it. Basically, the order to the terminus is distinguished by way of relation. That's the better way of explaining it. I don't know why I explained it that first way. So the termini, to the plural of terminus, the termini of the two processions would not be distinguished merely by the manner of procession, because intellection and volition and God are not really distinct. So that can't distinguish it. So there actually has to be a relation between the two termini. Okay? So this has to be that of a terminus a quo and the terminus ad quem, the terminus from which and the terminus to which. I hope that made sense. Here we go. That's what I wanted to answer. What is your best refutation of the Orthodox position of potential in God? For example, they will say he has energies that are not being actualized. No, I mean that's not the traditional Orthodox position. That's the modern e-Orthodox made up position. To say that God has passive potency is completely contrary to even the Eastern Orthodox tradition of theology. So read Tikhon Pino, okay? Tikhon Pino, Essence and Energies. I can't remember the essence. Oh, the title is just Essence and Energies. Yeah, Tikhon Pino, Essence and Energies, being and naming God in St. Gregory Palamas. So read that and look at the section on Octus Purus. the fact that there's this big disagreement between whether there is passive potency in God, because St. Thomas says that there's potentia in God, but only active potency. Because active potency, that is the ability, if you want to put it like that, the ability to affect change in another. That's not an imperfection. That's act. It's not an imperfection. So therefore, we can predicate it of God. We're just denying passive potency. And the Eastern Orthodox tradition, historically at least, hasn't disagreed with us on this point. It's a novel point to bring up as disagreement. I'm not wearing a turtleneck. Well, I want to pull it up. Well, I guess I'm not answering your question because I'm trying to. Is this not letting me pull up questions? Okay, so if essay in and essay odd are only distinct intramental inside the mind, then how are they not identical outside the mind? Would they not be identical extramental? We do say that essay in and essay odd are really identical. I don't know where you're who told you otherwise, because we teach that they're really identical in a relation in God. Trying to see. Okay, what are you talking about, Saint Francisco Franco? My previous question based if there were any authoritative statements from the Pope or the Magisterium that refute those who believe that sacred scripture is only metaphorical. Yeah, there are a lot. You can look at, there's a multitude of statements from the old, what did they call it before? It was the Pontifical Biblical Commission. What was it before? I'm trying to figure out remember what it was before the Pontifical Biblical Commission, back when it used to have magisterial authority. There's Providentissimus Deus, obviously. Where is it? The Pontifical Biblical Commission? It wasn't called the Pontifical. I can't remember what it was. Does any of you guys remember what it was called? Before it was called the, you guys don't even remember. It's so over. Okay, yeah, but basically any papal encyclical on Scripture is going to refute the idea that sacred Scripture is only metaphorical. You had T. Campino as theology professor. Let me see. Yeah, what does bro mean by absolute divine simplicity? I hate this. I hate this category of absolute divine simplicity, because simplicity, that just means whether there are parts to something. What do you mean is he absolutely without parts or not? That would be like me making a statement like, God is omnipotent, and anytime I quoted a church father saying God is omnipotent, be like, that's he's not teaching absolute divine omnipotence. He's only teaching divine omnipotence. This distinction is just, it's baseless. It's completely baseless. So yeah, there's a billion church fathers who talk about how God is simple. I don't need any of them saying that God is absolutely divinely simple. It's nonsense. Isn't the essence energy distinction just another way of describing principle in relation to attributes? I mean, personally speaking, I think that when language like essence and energies, or essence and things around God, etc., when they say stuff like this, they're basically distinguishing between God as he is in himself and then God as he is known, which is like a very common distinction that the medievals make. That's why the medievals say, for example, the reason why there's the multiplicity of attributes, like God doesn't know himself under all of these attributes. The reason why there's a multiplicity of attributes is because the medium of our knowledge is from creatures. And that's why we know God under multiple different perfections. But actually, I just quoted something from Pope St. Leo the Great the other day of him talking about how the attributes are really identical to the essence. But yeah, I guess an Orthodox individual would interpret that as absolute divine simplicity. And they would say, oh, well, it's Augustinian and something. Or you'll get like the certain individuals who they will quote church fathers talking about how we know God through his effects. And they'll say, oh, that's the essence energies distinction because we know God through his effects. It's like, are you serious? Pretty much not just pretty much every single Catholic theologian is going to say we know God through his effects. It's not something which is uniquely Palamite. It's crazy. Why did our Lord tell Mary Magdalene not to touch him? That's a good question. I guess I don't know. I don't know. Sorry. Peter Diamond playlist in which he refutes Eastern Orthodoxy is exquisite. Does Peter Diamond have a playlist for that? Yeah, too bad I don't have Hassan here. Hassan would know the answer to your question, Mr. the Ninth Crusade. Refuting Eastern, quote, Orthodoxy. Interesting. Anyways, I watched the Diamond Castman debate. Yikes, maybe I'm dumb. What's the best response to Diamond's shotgunning of problematic teachings from St. John Paul II and Pope Francis? It was super effective in my opinion. Dude, he shotgunned teachings for like 20 minutes. And I watched that like 2 years ago. You want me to go through every single one of the teachings? I mean, basically, there's a lot of these actions, I guess, is usually they point to actions. There are a lot of these actions where we could just say genuinely, like, yeah, that was bad. They shouldn't have done that. I mean, there's other teachings that we could even say, like, yeah, that was wrong. A lot of them are just interpreted in completely uncharitable or non-contextual ways. I mean, for example, like accusing St. John Paul II of universalism, like weird stuff like that, when he very clearly never believed universalism, and any sort of charitable interpretation or interpretation that takes into account his other teachings wouldn't interpret St. John Paul II as believing in universalism. But yeah, I guess the only thing I can offer is general guidelines because of the amount of things brought up. So it really would only be cases where you could say that, yeah, they shouldn't have done that, or certain teachings where they say, yeah, they shouldn't have said that. A lot of cases, it's going to be something which is simply out of context, not interpreted in line with the totality of their teaching or how they normally use words, etc. But really, the question that you have to ask them is, could you demonstrate or prove that somehow this would prove the Sedevacantist position if they taught X thing? I've asked a lot of Sedevacantists to basically provide me with a, because there's a few steps of reasoning that you kind of need to go through. First, you're going to have to prove, like, okay, well, if the Pope teaches X teaching, then I can certainly affirm that I ought not to be in communion with that individual, that he's not the Pope. So first you would need to prove, obviously, the major premise. You need to prove that this principle is sound and certain, which I don't think it's a sound and certain principle, that if the Pope teaches a certain level of bad, then therefore I can be justified in personally or privately discerning the matter to be the case that I ought not to be in communion with the at least material successor to Saint Peter on the chair of Rome. I think that's just a flawed principle to begin with, which is kind of how I went with my response, because I don't like going through the sort of individual quote thing. I think that's very it's a very unfortunate thing, because if they put forward 20 quotes and let's say you adequately resolve 19 of them, and then the 20th one, it's like, okay, it's probably wrong, but like they're still down in my mind, the person's still gonna have doubt in their mind. So it's just not a I don't like that practice so much. But they also have to prove the minor premise that this is something which is the case, which is going to involve a few things. I mean, it's going to involve them to prove the definitive status of the previous teaching through ordinary scientific methods, and then also, on the other hand, to prove the formal and not merely virtual negation of the former teaching, which is also very difficult to do in a sort of unequivocal way. So I actually think it's a lot harder than most people want to let you believe. It's very much more difficult. Have you read through the Examen for White Allies on the official Jesuit website? No, I haven't. I have not. Did you see Father Moses Gunnar chart? Oh my gosh. Please stop. Wagner, watch the Palmarian video on why their mass is short. They believe Mary is present in their Eucharist. A comment goes through 30 steps on why. What? I don't know which you're talking about. Yeah, I've never gotten this objection. So, does God's omniscience lead to determinism? How do we respond when people say God's omniscience dismantles free will? St. Thomas wrote this. I've never really gotten why a lot of people struggle with this objection, because when it comes, I mean, there's other ones which I think are much like more difficult to resolve. Basically, just because you know something's going to happen doesn't mean that that thing happens necessarily. Like, for example, if Socrates is sitting, then he is sitting. That doesn't mean that he's necessarily sitting. He could have freely chose to sit, or he could have been forced down there to sit. Just because you know that something is the case, does not mean that it's necessarily the case. So I don't understand. I've seen this video. I like universal peaceful acceptance. Me too. Oh, bro. Oh, bro. Oh, bro. You're trolling. You're trolling. Is Pope Francis saying women are better at managing while appointing a nun as governor of VC binding? Actually, I'm gonna hyper nuance this. By women are better at managing, he's talking about like menial, day to day tasks. He's not talking about like leading important and cool stuff. Okay, so it's actually a sexist remark. He's talking about like doing the dishes and stuff. Okay, that's what's happening. Gish galloping? Why? What do you mean I'm gish galloping? Hey, my friends and I run a theology group up at Penn State called TNT. How can we schedule you to come to give a talk up here? You can just email me. Yeah, I love Penn State. I have family members who went there. Okay. No. You're not understanding. I thought we distinguished the persons by speaking about essay in and essay odd. And if you have said they are identical in reality, then the persons would be identical in reality. No. You're not understanding. Essay in and essay odd are two aspects of a relation. When we say that they're distinct by essay odd, what we mean is that there's a certain order to the terminus which distinguishes them. Okay, does that make sense? Because these are opposed, i.e., they lack identity with one another. Because when it comes to a real relation, and its terminus, these two real relation is terminus, that which is ordered towards. These can't be really identical to one another. Okay, so that's what distinguishes the persons. Not somehow that there's like an essay in and then there's like essay odds really distinct added on top of it. Like that's not how. The classic. Diamonds basically use Thomistic definitions and misunderstands Palamas. Oh, that's a classic. That's a classic right there. Does the Catholic Church worship the literal, actual Sacred Heart of Christ, or is it just a metaphor? Are you talking about do we worship the muscle, the muscular organ that beats in the chest of Christ and pumped blood throughout his body? Is that what you mean? Yes, we do worship that, but only in union with the whole person. We can focus on a certain aspect of Christ. But Sacred Heart, usually when we're talking about the Sacred Heart, we're usually talking about the Sacred Heart as a symbol of the morally united love of Christ for sinners. That's what we usually mean by Sacred Heart. But so it's kind of like a yes and question, or both and question, rather. Let me see. I would actually come if you came to Penn State, W. The Sacred Heart's Nestorian, and here's why. Yeah. The Sacred Heart is Nestorian. Question is retarded. Does the Pope receive the light of prophecy when making an ex cathedra statement? No, not at all. Not at all. The light of prophecy infuses certain notions into the intellect of the prophet so they can infallibly judge. The Pope, when making an ex cathedra statement, it's merely a negative charism which protects him from error. Like God could, if he wanted to, give a random person, like a random priest when preaching a sermon, the gift of infallibility, which would guard him from error. Like if he really wanted to, he could do that. And the person could not even know that they're having it. They don't even know that they have it. That's perfectly possible. The Pope isn't just like the Oracle of Delphi who sits in St. Peter's and, every time he makes an ex cathedra statement, he's been like given some sort of message to pass down. That's not how it works at all. Can there be a solid argument? That made that St. John of Damascus led to Palamism? No. Hey, Christian, I think you might have missed my super chat. Wait, let me check. Okay. Oh, yeah, I see. So, Father is identical to relation of paternity. Father is subject of relation who begets. How can Father be subject of paternity and paternity itself? What would be the particular objection that you're drawing here? I don't know why it would be necessarily problematic for the same thing to be the subject of paternity and paternity itself. Because we're just talking about the same thing under two aspects when we distinguish between the subject of something and that thing itself. This would be like the distinction between signified and exercised act. It would be, I'm trying to think of like an analogous example. Because when we're talking about like a person is relation, for example, oftentimes enemies of Catholicism will like point to person as relation, and they will they'll have like a huge issue with that. But really, when we're talking about relation as that which distinguishes the person, and then we go ahead and kind of flip it on its head and say, oh, well, That's also the person is the subject of that. I mean, we're doing the same sort of movement between the concrete and the abstract that we do with anything else. I mean, it's the same thing as when we go and we call God wise, and then we all also call God wisdom itself, or God is good, God is goodness itself. You know, we have to move between these two modes or ways of talking because these are each inadequate expressions which bring alongside of it some sort of imperfection. So it's not imperfection on the part of the thing signified, you would just be drawing forth the fact that each of these are inadequate modes of expression. And that's why in scholasticism we spend so much time making negations every time we affirm something. Does that make sense? Do you do speaking events? How much to book you for a lecture at my parish? Would be nice gifted the confirmants this Easter. I mean, I would just do it for like travel costs. I don't I wouldn't charge a bunch of money or anything like that. I mean, you know, traveling to a different place and meeting new people is kind of cool. And I can do my work wherever. I'm not really like space bound. I don't have to like take time off work or anything like that. Where did you get the crucifix on your wall? My mom got it for me. Not my mom, my wife. Actually, my mom and my wife, I got it for me. They both pitched in. Do you think the idea that the act of obedience of Christ imputed to us is a Protestant innovation? Yes, absolutely. Oh yeah, Anglo Schizo. I forgot to give you your second question because I didn't know about the Saint Bernard thing. But yes, I absolutely think this. There's no sort of hint of belief in this in the pre Reformation tradition. I mean, even this is even recognized by a lot of Protestants who didn't affirm the active obedience of Christ, the imputation of the active obedience of Christ. How much do I need to donate for you to use Ether? I literally use Ethernet. It's connected right there. I have no idea what's going on. It was working fine. It has been working fine. I don't know. Maybe I just have bad luck or I don't know. I don't know. Okay. I actually did not eat meat last Friday. I didn't. Maybe dumb question, but relations of opposition proves the filioque. Yes. You can look at, and I quote some church fathers on this one, but in Distinguo, I sometimes forget the names of my videos anymore. You look up Distinguo filioque. Yeah, I think it might be one argument destroys Eastern Orthodox heresy. Maybe is that one. Or the one right below mine, the filioque controversy. Is it really such a big deal with Jimmy Akin? Jimmy Akin, rare Jimmy Akin W. At what point is looking at the opposite sex sinful? Okay, so there's 3 types of actions, moral actions, like external moral actions, sexually that we usually talk about. We usually talk about words, talk about touches, we talk about looks. Okay, words, touches, and looks. So when it comes to any of these, technically speaking, like just materially considered. So without like the consent of the will, without the influence of the passions, nothing like that. Like these are sinful praxis. Okay, so we can think about in certain of these cases, because this is what basically a lot of people are gonna do, especially in the modern day. They're gonna misunderstand this and think that when it comes to these words, touches, and looks, when it comes to words, touches, and looks, that we're saying that these are per se sinful, like fornication or adultery. But no, we actually are not saying that, which is an important clarification. Because, for example, like if you're a doctor, a lot of times as a doctor, you might have to, touch a patient in certain parts of their bodies that would be absolutely inappropriate for, your average person to. Or, you're at the beach and there's a woman drowning and you have to go out and save her. Like you could touch her in a way that would otherwise be completely inappropriate. But on the other hand, like when it comes to fornication or adultery, you could never fornicate or never commit adultery for a just reason. But there's just causes which actually can justify, sufficiently justify each one of these types of acts when it comes to looks, touches, and words. So as a sort of general guiding principle, when it comes to placing oneself in a in proximate danger of sort of interior acts of interior consent to inappropriate sexual enjoyment in any one of those cases, or on the other hand, if one is assaulted by such passions, they don't fight against those passions. In those cases, it's going to be something which is sinful. So generally speaking, this is why we have general clothing standards, which are basically going to distinguish between dishonorable parts, which are going to be the genitals, less honorable parts, which are going to be things like chest, back, upper legs, etc. And these first two need to be covered. And then, although with the second group, some are going to say they're going to distinguish between when you're around those of the same sex or family members, and when you're around those of the opposite sex. But then there's the third one, which is like face, head, hands, feet, stuff like that. I mean, one can have uncovered in public and not really fall into much issue. So yeah, I don't really know where I was going there, but yeah, that's kind of where, when we're talking about general moral guidelines, that's what we're drawing it from, is we're drawing from the proximate danger in which we put ourselves in by these various acts. So when it comes to really any form of premarital touch, it's gonna be on the no list. Okay. And also, this informs our teachings on modesty as well, which are going to have looks. And also, like, a modesty of speech is very important. A lot of times we forget about modesty of speech, which can very easily influence people in bringing about bad vices, or it can scandalize them in bringing about certain passions by reminding them of certain phantasms of evil things. Do not forget about sins of speech or immodest speech. Okay. Okay, so the video and the audio have been good for the last 30 minutes. I know you're pretty busy, but when is the next Distinguo banger? So he's working on it. Unius Initiative is working on it. We're actually going to have a special individual who's working on it with UI, an individual most of you guys know. So the next one's going to be especially good, for sure. Can you wax for a bit on the nature description of Christ's temptation? For example, if I'm tempted to lust, I battle those sinful thoughts because thoughts that have already formed, but I'm assuming it doesn't look like that for Christ. I mean, okay. So basically, when it comes to like the mode of your temptation, there's and this connects in a little bit with some of the stuff. And maybe I'll type this. The $20 super chat gets typed. You get the typed notes on the screen. Oh, it's not opening. What the heck? What's going on here? Okay. Yeah, you get the typed notes in front of your eyes for this one. So this connects in with the article that I did a few days ago on concupiscence and the Blessed Virgin. So there's basically three types of concupiscence. And just so we're all on the same page, we talk about concupiscence. By concupiscence, we just mean the motion of the sense appetites towards sense goods apprehended. So, like this water, there's a sense in which I could talk about me having concupiscence towards this water because I have some sort of sense enjoyment on this water. So concupiscence is a neutral term when it comes to sinfulness. We don't necessarily mean sinful concupiscence or lust, which is the general way in which we use this. So motion towards sense good. I guess I'll put interior motion towards sense good. That's what we mean by concupiscence. Okay. So the first type of concupiscence is going to be concupiscence under the control of reason. Okay. So concupiscence under the control of reason. And oftentimes the fathers will actually refer to this as blameless passions. Basically, these types of concupiscence, you have a certain gift which comes by grace, and when it comes to this gift, you are able to order and direct all of the motions of towards sense goods. Because motions, having interior motions towards sense goods, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing, because if I didn't enjoy drinking water, for example, then I wouldn't drink water. It's a good thing that I enjoy drinking water, because maybe if I really didn't like drinking water and I didn't really care about the consequence, I just never drink water and then I die. It's actually very good that we have these sense motions towards sense goods. Okay, but in the case of Adam and Eve before the fall, in the case of Christ, in the case of the Blessed Virgin, whether according to some from the moment of conception or according to others from the moment of the Annunciation, with the Blessed Virgin, with all of those individuals, they're going to have complete, explicit control of the will over all of these sense motions. On the other hand, you can have concupiscence beside the control of reason. So basically, these motions of concupiscence, they don't war against your reason. They're not something which wars against the good and tries to draw you into evil. That's concupiscence as it is an effect of original sin. With this concupiscence, it's kind of just there. It's kind of just there. It's kind of just motions towards the sense good. It's not controlled by reason. It's not commanded by reason in any way. But it's also not unreasonable. It's simply beside reason. So with these, Christ did not have them, and Adam and Eve before the fall did not have them, and some say the Blessed Virgin did not have them, although others disagree. And with the third one, concupiscence, which is against reason. So this is the type of when you have temptations, there's, let's say, like a certain phantasm gets shot up into your mind. You remember something, or you have an imagination about something which is evil, and then you have motions of your appetites towards that illicit good, and this draws you into trying to consent interiorly to the enjoyment of considering an illicit good. That type of temptation Christ never had whatsoever. Christ never had these. Really, when we're talking about the temptation of Christ, we're talking about one, in terms of an example of what we would find as tempting. And then two, we can just literally be talking about exterior afflictions. So there's certain exterior afflictions which occur against Christ, which are attempting to push his will in such a way. We're not talking about any sort of interior motions that were toward that at all. Interiorly, he was always fighting against the external force against him. So yeah, when we talk about the temptation of Christ, it would kind of be like if, it's exactly like this. If you have a martyr who is firm in the faith, and they are getting like the crap beaten out of them, you can talk about them being tempted or tested by getting the crap beat out of them. But I'm not implying that they at any point doubted about the faith, or they at any time even considered defecting from the true faith. Does that make sense? Yeah, or you could just TLDR it like this guy. Jesus wasn't tempted internally. You just TLDR it. That's epic. Okay. Do universals exist independently of the particulars that instantiate them? No. Okay, how do the theologians determine the less honorable? Okay, so the genitals are dishonorable and not less honorable. I mean, really less honorable. They're more or less discovered through the experience of advanced cultures. That's generally the way in which the less honorable parts are discovered. Although it could also be discovered through through the experience of individuals between what ordinarily is going to place one in such proximate danger. So it can be from the experience of individuals, and it's usually expressed through the common practices of morally advanced cultures. No side hugs with the opposite sex. You probably shouldn't be touching people of the opposite sex that aren't your family members. Q&A is basically pay to win. I do look through. I've answered some non super chats. What is the correct term? Millennialism for Christ's reign on earth. Everywhere it looks as amillennialism. I mean, millennialism is erroneous. You can't believe that there's going to be a corporeal, earthly millennium where Christ will reign in the future. It's a condemned view. Why is everybody asking about Kevin Nod Tratty Cath? Obviously, I think he's cringe. Okay, I already answered this. Well, I'm 2 minutes behind. Did you ever respond to Scholastic Lutherans on your justification video? If so, which video should I watch? How could I respond to them when they didn't even respond to me? I mean, they're nice enough guys, but they basically just didn't even watch it beforehand. And then they started a review and kind of said like, "Oh crap!" halfway through the review and gave up. So I mean, I can't even really like respond. Like, what am I supposed to do to respond to that? My original video already responded enough. I still don't understand how the proper modesty standards are reached. Okay, so basically, because remember, when it comes to, and it might be worth it talking to Hassan about this. But when it comes to certain looks, and therefore when it comes to dress, this isn't something which is sinful per se. It's sinful per actions. And the reason for this has to do with the inflaming of concupiscence, which places us in proximate danger of consenting to illicit desires. And these things, because of the fact that it's per accidents, it's something which can be sufficiently justified. So, for example, you have a doctor, and the doctor has to do surgery on a woman, and doing surgery on the woman is going to expose certain less honorable parts that he needs to for the sake of the healing of the body. He needs to be able to see. This doctor, of course, is still required to make all sort of interiorly war against any sort of delectation which may arise upon these looks. And if he habitually falls into mortal sin by his interior acts or exterior acts that are connected with this, he's required to leave his profession for the sake of his soul. But when it comes to whatever is to be presented to the public, whatever is presented to the public can't be something which is going to ordinarily place individuals in proximate danger of sin. And I mean, this is going to be certain things which we can draw forth obvious conclusions. So this can't be certain bodily parts that I'm sure everybody's aware of. But this is also why the standards slightly change when it comes to when you're around the opposite sex. So, like, for example, if I were to go to the beach with my immediate family, and it's a private beach, nobody else is around, then I were to like not wear a shirt, that would be completely different than if I were to go in public somehow to a public pool and not wear a shirt. Those are two complete. Or if I was just around guys, it would be completely different in these cases. So I hope did you kind of get how because I'm trying to give various examples to show you how the principle like applies in various different cases. What is watching Instagram reels of things I know are inappropriate but not gooning and hating that I'm watching it sinful? Yeah, you shouldn't do that. No, you shouldn't do that. Okay. If a cause is always greater than its effects, how do we reconcile this with the consubstantiality of the persons? Does that definition of cause not apply to the hypostatic origin? Because when we say that cause is greater than its effect, we're talking about efficient causality. The persons are not efficient. The Father is not an efficient cause of the Son, properly speaking. He's only a principle, which just simply implies order of origin. It doesn't imply everything that that an efficient cause is going to imply. Yeah, when the Greeks use the term cause in order to explain the relations of origin of the persons, they're just using a less proper term. They can obviously clarify it of any sort of imperfections and still use it in theology, but it ought not to be taken in the sense of like the four Aristotelian causes. Okay, I've been here like a little over an hour and 15 minutes. Bruh. Were Adam and Eve pretty per physical perfection? Do you mean, did they have like physically, like non-physically defective bodies? Like, yeah, I guess. I mean, that's part of the integrity of the state of our first parents. Hello, Wagner. Hello. I think I'm gonna go. Getting a bit tired. Crashing out right now. But thank you for all of the questions. I appreciate it. I hope that you enjoyed yourself. I hope that if you had your question answered, I hope that it was to that you understood it, that you appreciated it, and that you learned something today. So, yeah, I'm kind of sleepy. So I will talk to you guys later. I don't know if I'm going to stream tomorrow night. Probably will. But as always, God bless.
Pope Benedict XVI said that mental prayer is an ordinary means that enables the disciple of Jesus to live in intimacy with the divine teacher. Yet, how does one engage in mental prayer? One of the greatest masters of the spiritual life was Saint Ignatius of Loyola. In the 19th century, a certain Jesuit priest decided to write a complete guide to mental prayer, patterned on the works of Saint Ignatius. Check out this work on Amazon, completely typeset under the title A Brief Guide to Mental Prayer According to the Mind of Saint Ignatius.